Let's talk about the real reason you binge eat and feel out of control with food. It is not because you do not have willpower. You need to stop blaming your lack of self-discipline and really blaming yourself and having all this negative self-talk about yourself for feeling out of control with food. Because when you do that, you are completely unaware and not looking for the actual reason that is causing your binge eating. You keep blaming yourself and resolving to be stricter and stronger and restrict more and have more self-discipline. And that, as you will soon learn, is actually fueling your binge eating, and you're not actually getting to the core issue and reason of why you're binge eating. So number one, stop blaming your willpower and self-discipline. Stop being mean to yourself and having all that negative self-talk. You are not weak. You are not a failure for binge eating. Today, you're going to find out the real reason you binge eat and how to stop. Good news, there's a way to stop. There are essentially 3 reasons that you binge eat. This is something I teach you and walk you through step by step in detail in my self-paced online course, Living Free. I'm going to share the link in the description if you want to check it out and learn more. Let's get into the 3 reasons you binge eat. Number 1, you're not eating enough, which is a physical restriction to the body. 1,200 calories is not enough for an adult. It's enough for a toddler, not enough for an adult. 1,500 calories isn't enough either. 1,600 calories isn't enough either. You need to be eating enough for your body. And in diet culture and diets, it's very much praised to eat less and wow, look at me, I'm able to control my hunger. That's not normal. Would you ever say, hey, I'm trying to control my breathing. I'm going to breathe as little as possible today. Or I'm going to try to control my bladder and only go to the bathroom twice today. That's absurd, right? We would never do that. Stop doing that with your hunger. You need to be eating enough, because here's what happens when you are physically restricting and not eating enough and are ignoring your hunger. There are literal survival mechanisms happening in your body to push you to eat and eventually drive you to binge eating. Your body does not understand that you are surrounded by food. It only understands the messages it's getting on a cellular level. The first thing that happens when your body senses that you're low on energy, especially if you're low on carbs, because carbs is the body's essential preferred fuel source, you're gonna have an increased production of a neurotransmitter called neuropeptide Y. Neuropeptide Y is also known as the carb craver. It basically sends signals to your brain and to your body to crave carbs and to get that energy as a way to push you to eat, to get enough food to live. Remember, again, your body is a primal being. It does not understand that you're trying to diet and you're purposely restricting and you have access to food. It just understands, oh my gosh, we don't have enough food. We don't have enough nourishment. We gotta do whatever we can to push this body to go eat. And so you're gonna have more cravings and an urgency to eat. And that is a normal response to physical restriction. That's your body trying to protect you. When you're also not giving your body enough energy, you increase the reward response in your brain to food, so that when you do eat the food, it tastes even better. Have you ever had bread when you're starving? Suddenly it's the most delicious thing on earth. That is your body motivating you to go eat. Your body is so smart. Your body, again, is trying to protect you and getting you to eat enough. So the first essential step, and I see this with clients all the time, when you don't eat enough, you are much more likely to overeat and even binge eat at the next meal. So the first step is to really identify your hunger cues and honor them in time. You will see a world of a difference in the urgency you have around food when your body is not in an urgent state and you enter a meal at a comfortable hunger versus super, super hungry because you've been ignoring it all day or you've been trying to beat your hunger, which is not necessary. It is not healthy. It is normal to eat and honor your hunger. So start doing that and you will probably immediately see a difference in how your body feels and how you feel around food when you're entering that meal in a comfortable state of hunger instead of being starving. So number 2 is mental restriction, which is another way to say food rules, food guilt. If you're experiencing that when you're eating food, it's likely that you have some sort of mental restriction that's telling you, I really shouldn't be eating this. So once you make sure that you are eating enough and you are consistently honoring your hunger, now it's time to really let go of the mental restriction. And this is where it can feel kind of scary. Like, what do you mean, Rachel? I should now just not have any rules around food and eat whatever I want? Yes, But there's also a process to this, and I'm gonna let you know right now, you don't have to reintroduce all your trigger foods and off-limit foods at once. You could do this one food at a time, but it is essential to reduce the novelty around these foods in order to eat them in amounts that feel good. Because what happens is when you are mentally restricting, also known as food rules, food guilt, all the reasons why you shouldn't eat it, you're heightening again the reward response because your body is getting the message, oh, we're not gonna have access to this food, we're not having any more tomorrow, right? That all or none mentality, last supper mentality, I'm gonna binge and eat all of this food now because tomorrow I'm starting fresh, aka I'm gonna restrict again. And so you're sending the messages to your brain, hey, food is gonna be off limits to a certain capacity, even though again, you're surrounded by food, you know logically that you have access to food. That's not the message you're sending your brain. And so you're increasing the reward response to that food. And that's why when you feel like, oh, I'm addicted to food, you're not actually addicted, you just feel addicted because you are increasing the reward response to foods when you're constantly telling yourself you're not gonna have access tomorrow or at the next meal and planning for restriction. Trying to keep these foods off limits is exactly what drives you to binge on them. Just think of basic human psychology. If I tell you right now, do not think of a black panda, what are you thinking about? Probably a black panda. If you tell kids, hey, there are red and yellow M&Ms, do not eat the red M&Ms. Chances are they're suddenly gonna wanna eat the red M&Ms. What you tell yourself not to do, the brain removes the not and then makes you actually want to do it. So constantly mentally restricting yourself and saying don't eat it, don't eat it, don't eat it is part of the problem. Restriction is part of why you go all out and binge eat. Because if you truly believe that you're not going to have that food the next day, then of course you're going to want to have as much as you can now because it's going to be taken away from you. It creates an urgency. It's kind of like giving a toy to a child and saying you can only play with it for 1 hour this whole week. The kid's not gonna wanna give it back to you after 1 hour. They're gonna wanna milk it for all it's worth. But if you tell the child, hey, this is a toy, you can play with it whenever you want, maybe at first they'll get excited and they'll play with it a lot, but probably after a day, 2 or 3, it'll just become another toy to play with and enjoy. It won't be this like obsession or having to play with it all the time. And that's essentially what we're trying to do with food by removing the mental restriction and giving yourself permission to really enjoy it, because when you don't have all these food rules and noise around it, you also can experience it fully and really, really notice how it affects your body, because it could be that you're eating those cookies because it's your only chance, but are you even really enjoying those cookies? Maybe you don't even know because you are so wrapped up in the food noise in your mind, you're not actually experiencing what the body is experiencing. So it is so essential to challenge your food rules, remove mental restrictions so you can truly be present in the moment when you're eating food and make authentic food choices that feel good without guilt. And that's what's gonna help you eat in amounts that feel good. You're also gonna reduce the novelty, which then also reduces the reward response, which then also reduces the urgency to eat it all while you can, and you can then listen to your fullness and respect it and eat in amounts that feel good. And remember, it's okay to take it one food at a time, incorporate it into your meals or have it as a snack, plan it out, but you can slowly and gently reintroduce one food at a time until you normalize it and then work through to the next food. But the goal is to remove the mental restriction and food rules so you can truly experience the food for what it is and be able to listen to your fullness and honor it when you're satisfied. Number 3, so you are honoring your hunger cues, you've removed physical restriction, you have challenged your food rules, are eating with permission, and removed mental restriction. If you're still feeling chaotic with food, assess if this is related to your emotional coping mechanisms. Now, I want to be very clear. Emotionally eating is not automatically bad. Food is inherently emotional. It's comfort, it's love, it's connection, and it's okay if sometimes you have a bad day and you're like, hey, I just need a bowl of ice cream, sit on the couch, veg out, enjoy this bowl of ice cream, and it really does bring you comfort and helps you feel better. However, if food is your only way of coping, if it feels out of control, if it doesn't feel good, if it doesn't actually resolve the issue at hand, then what you need to focus on is expanding your coping skills. So you don't want to focus on the binge and blaming yourself and, oh, I have no self-control, because that's not actually getting to the root of the issue. You want to be kind and compassionate and say, hey, I've binged, I felt out of control with food. Let me just take time to be curious and kind and assess what happened. Oh, I had a really stressful day. This was actually a situation of emotional eating because I was feeling XYZ. What do I need to help me cope? Practice those coping skills, not just when you're feeling out of control with food or when you're faced with food, but as a daily practice. Build those coping skills, build those muscles, so that when you are faced with an emotional situation where you're prone to defaulting to food, you are already creating a habit with these coping skills. So as you can see, there are reasons that you binge eat, and as long as you're blaming yourself and your willpower and self-discipline and feeling guilty and engaging in negative self-talk, you completely miss out on the opportunity to figure out the actual reason. It could be one reason, it could be a combination of all three. I recommend if you have a combination of all three where you're not honoring your hunger, you have food rules, you need to expand your emotional coping mechanisms, start with number one. First and foremost, your body needs to feel safe. Start with learning to honor your hunger. Once you're consistent with that and you've learned to do that in a way that feels more natural, work through your food rules. And then once you work through your food rules and remove the mental restriction, you will then be able to have more of the mental bandwidth and capacity to really deal with emotional eating for what it is and not, some other things that are contributing, perhaps not honoring your hunger and having food rules. Because if you combine that, it just becomes one big, overwhelming, stressful situation where perhaps you're eating emotionally, but it's compounded and exacerbated by the fact that you're also not eating enough and you also have food rules. So it is so essential to work through each step to stop binge eating. So the next time that a binge happens, instead of blaming yourself and getting in your own head and spiraling, which really just kind of fuels even more eating, take a moment to take a step back. Yes, your body probably doesn't feel best, but take a step back and assess, hey, what contributed to this? Because there is a reason. And if you can get to understanding the core reason, you can address it at its root. And as a result, you'll stop binge eating because you're actually addressing the reason, not the symptom. Binge eating is a symptom. So take time to reflect in your own life which it is for you, start working on it, and if you need more help in walking through each step, you can join my online course, Living Free. I've linked it in the description if you'd like to learn more. If you found this video helpful, subscribe, give this video a like, and follow along because I will be sharing more helpful tips, information, inspiration, motivation to help you find food freedom, heal your relationship with food, feel good in your body without all the noise and the rules and the stress and the dieting. It's possible for you. I'm rooting for you and I'm so excited to have you here. Thanks for watching.